Tanse, my name is Simon Bird. I am Cree Simon Says. To find me, just Google or go on Facebook. Facebook is the current platform that I use. Hashtag Cree Simon Says. And what that is just a fun, easy way to learn Cree from Simon and what I'm saying. I am a fluent speaker from the TH dialect. For the first part of my life, I've been raised to speak and to hear and to listen to Cree speakers. And then I married into the Plains Cree, Pitigonak, in the Biesu Oasis family, the Thunderchild family. So I proudly acknowledge the Plains Cree family members that I have. The premises of this whole Cree Simon Says is to provide a connection to the language from people that don't have any other connection. We talk about residential school survivors. We talk about people, professionals that have a mandate for reconciliation and a heart to connect with Cree people or other indigenous languages and other indigenous people. And it's very hard, to formally schedule your life around speakers and when and where and resource. So I just, in a fun way, I just post up things like "Mayu kiss a cow" or "Meow kiss a cow," and that's a rough way to say "Mio gisigao." Mio gisigao. Mio gisigao means it's a good day. And I post up various other things that people may not know. People don't know the Cree word for Regina. People always talk about the Oskana cup. Well, that's actually Oskana. Oskana means bones. Oskan is one bone. Oskana is more than two or more. And of course, Waskana, Waskana Park. That's a very poor way to spell Oskana, bones. Now, why is bone so prevalent around Regina? The Cree word, the Cree name for Regina is actually Oskana Gasastige. Oskana Gasastige means the place where bones are gathered. If you do a little bit of research, you'll come across pictures of mountains of buffalo, bison bones, Pascualmustos, Pascualmustos Oskana, the buffalo bones. When they cleared the plains, they slaughtered the bison. That was just a place where they had the train in Regina. That's where they piled them. That's where they started transporting them, using them for various ways. So our Cree language is actually very rich. So what I do is I barely plant seeds and I introduce the language because I'm banking on other Cree speakers to start picking it up from there. All I do is introduce it, and other Cree speakers, they can help build that relationship to help a person's journey. But there's a couple things that I do not do. I don't degrade women. I do not make fun of other people. And I don't say that this is the one and only way this is commonly said. I just say this is one way that's commonly said. And if I ever come across a question, somebody you may be reading on a question saying, how do you say river? Well, if I know it's commonly said in the N dialect, TH dialect, and the Y dialect, that's sipe, sipe, I will say sipe. But if somebody was to ask me, how do you say bear? I will make every effort. This is a hobby, so you'll come across a lot of posts, Masqua, and in some parts of Y dialect country, Plains Cree, they say Wagayus. So it's really there to help connect people in a daily way, engage learners, and build their confidence in coming home to what feels most natural. Back to the language, they might be displaced, might have lost family members or residential school survivors, and it's just my way of just channeling my creative side to get, keep myself busy. And I'm glad that other people are learning along the way. I don't really know how to define success. There's been many times where I'll think, well, I'm just gonna quit now. I The things that I do, I'm not getting paid for it, and what I do is I just sometimes it gets in the way of my personal time, and then I'm telling you, every time I feel like, maybe it's time, I'll just go about my own thing and do my own thing. Somebody will inbox me asking a question, and then that kind of pushes me along, and then somebody will say, "You're doing such an awesome job," and that kind of picks me back up, and then somebody will actually inbox me and just have a heartfelt, a really personal story, a personal story of how me being able to teach in the way I teach brought back some memories, some positive memories of when they were younger, and it brought back a small piece of healing. And that I tell you, a small inbox, a small word like that, just kind of brings me to a whole half a year, months and months of energy to be able to do and continue to do what I do. And so success. You're gonna have to ask other people. I don't know what that looks like for me. I just know that I made a commitment to some folks that I'll try my best every day, and I'll try to be respectful and teach it in a fun, positive way. And successful, you'll have to ask other people if it is successful. For me, I'm just having fun, and I'm just having a lot of positive response. Oh yeah, the very first time I started posting, I didn't know anything about administering or administration of a Facebook page, so, a Facebook group. It was open. Anybody could post anything, and people that just connected to my page, and I started putting a bunch of crazy stuff on there, and I would be inboxed, and I'd be getting text messages. Do you know what somebody put in there? Erase that stuff. And so I started playing around with the settings, and I said, okay, well, it's going to be private now, closed group. Little did I know that when you actually put closed group on Facebook, after you hit a certain amount of followers, or people that join a group, it again gets locked in. I believe it's 4,500 people, and then it gets locked. In order for me to actually change it to, people are always asking me, make it shareable, make it shareable, because people like sharing stuff on Facebook. I have to explain that it's locked in after 4,500. I subtract 4,500 from 13,000, and then that's how many people I'd have to subtract in order for me to change the settings. And yeah, it's not. It turned out to be a not too bad thing, because I do this on a volunteer basis, and I just love it. I hope to do a children's book, but I gotta tell you, every time you post something awesome on Facebook, and you get flooded with all these things, and it almost becomes laborsome, like +9 on your Facebook, and then you have to 60, 70 notices on your Facebook feed, and then you have to check them off. And that, I think that brings me a little bit of a consistency, a little bit of a small timeness for me to, it doesn't become too laborsome, because when if I can go about my day, and people can just randomly post and steal my stuff, that's fine. It's all free. I had some posts that went viral. I made a Cree Bruce Lee, and that was shared all over the place, and that was born from such a positive thing. But the whole having to make a go of it, of having to maintain consistency, that's easy for me. But as long as it doesn't become overwhelming, then at the moment something starts to feel like a job, then it stops being fun. So I'm glad you can't share everything, because the more people share stuff, the more hits you get. The more hits you get, the more notices I get. The more notices I get, the more I feel like I gotta check every single one. So far it's a good balance. I think Indigenous education is really, it can be many things. Personally, I really do believe that it can be many things, but it all boils down to sharing the best things that makes us unique as Indigenous people. I think sometimes it can range from land-based learning, and sometimes can be sharing a worldview. And but the easiest thing for me is the language. If you take the name of a horse in Cree, Misatim or Mistatim, Mistatim. Horse, Mistatim, is a Cree word, Mistatim, and that literally means big dog. Now, if you ask the Stony Nakota people, you know, in their language, they'll have a name for horse, and if you ask them, what does that mean? They'll say big dog. If you ask the Dene people, what is horse? They'll say big dog. So if you take just one word, and then you'll start to see the history. You gotta understand that the horse was introduced to these indigenous groups in one way or the other, and they described the horse based on what they already had. I think indigenous teaching and ways of knowing and learning is really getting to the root of what made it special. Sometimes, a lot of times, I'll see a Cree teacher teaching things, and I thought, oh, what a teachable moment. Ugh, that was passed up. And if you take a look at the Cree word for man, na biu. Cree word for woman is squeal. Now, if you take a look at esqueesis for girl, it literally means little woman. If you take a look at the Cree word for boy, nah bisis, it literally means little man. If we were to teach and treat our kids, our young people, like the young men and the young women that they're meant to be, imagine how much confidence that they have and they will have, and how much more clear, their role as a human being becomes later on in life. If you take a look at Japan, it's a Cree word that's commonly used, and a lot of people don't really think about the term Japan. Where does it come from? It's a shortened version of No Japan, my great grandfather, my great grandmother, or Ku Japan, your great grandmother or your great grandfather. But it can also mean my great grandchild. If you ask any Cree speaker, what does No Japan or Japan, what does that mean? And they'll tell you, well, it can either mean great grandparent or great grandchild. And you gotta think, what the heck? Why do you have such a one word for all those people? And then if you take a look at that root word, No Japan, it means the one I pull along. And then the root word is No Tapan, the one I drag along. Otapanask is a common way to say vehicle today. But before there was trucks, before there was cars, Otapanask was a toboggan, a sled, or something you pull along to make travel easier. Now, if you take a look at the history, if you just just spend some time on that word, No Chapan, is the one I pull along, and that relationship between a very young person and a very old person. The old people would help take care of the small guys traditionally, and who would they be pulling along? Well, those would be the young, 1.5 year old, 2 years old kids. And as a parent or as a bigger brother, bigger sister, sometimes that relationship goes the other way many times. If a little boy or a little girl wanna go play over there, if they're gonna go after this or that, well, they're pulling you along. So there's a lot of these rich, just these rich insights to what made us awesome as Indigenous people, and I strongly believe that if we were able to retain the language in any way, and the more you think about it, the more you contemplate, meditate, and learn about the language, I think it'll start to open up more of an idea of what made us strong. And I dispute the fact that people accept that we were drunks, drug addicts, abusers, and nothing but leeches on any kind of a system that's out there, society. It's just because the people had lost connection to what made them strong, and the language I think is just a roadmap filled with rich confirmations of how strong we can be. My perspective has always been if people want to be serious and want to spend some time with myself asking me questions, I'll make the time. But most times, my role that I've taken it upon myself is just to introduce language from a very confident place in a way where I'm just introducing it to other people to connect. The word meo kisakao is imagine and that's been told to me. Because of what you posted, it allowed me to connect with my mom. That actually happened. Somebody actually messaged me and said, because of the way you teach, I take what you're teaching and I phone up my mom. And before this, we didn't talk sometimes for a month or two at a time. But now that she's getting older and she's a fluent speaker, I'm finding it fun to reconnect. And that to me just it makes it worth it. Yeah, I know I'm not gaining anything out of it. I'm not asking, but I tell you, it does something in the inside to confirm that what you're doing is making a change, a positive change for other people. And I just hope and wish that if anything was to ever happen to myself, other people would treat my kids in the same positive manner that I hope to that I do for people, and that will come back in a good way. In a fun way, I'd like to be involved in Siri or Alexis. I'd like somebody to be able to press a button and you can ask Chris Simon says anything and press a button and then my voice will come on. Using technology, I think it's an amazing thing. I think it brings out such a spirit in people that makes them want to connect, and I think it's a way for people to make it okay. Using technology is gonna make it okay and make people just use it as a platform to reconnect with what made us strong. And that's my vision. Is I hope that the one-on-one, the oral language will never be replaced with anything else. But I think using technology will be just a way to reinvigorate and reintroduce and introduce and just be a common way for kids, for learners, for adults, for residential school survivors, for people that want to connect in a meaningful way. Use it to just connect. That's all it is. It's just to connect in a good way. And if you're one of those young people or those tech savvy people that wanna do a virtual world, if you take on those put on those 360-degree cameras on your head. I don't even know what they're called, and I bought some. I bought one for my kids. If you want to collaborate in a project, let me know. It's been awesome. I had some folks from Toronto ask me how you pronounce certain things because they were doing a play. I was asked by a woman from China that does chant on easy project. She wanted to do like a demonstration of speaking Cree using her kind of like a songbook. It kind of goes various ways, tones of voice. I was part of a documentary. I've been named in a couple books. You'll find my name in a couple books by Harold Johnson. A book about fire water and how alcohol has really done a detrimental disaster to our native people and our indigenous people. He asked me a couple questions, and I don't look for those little acknowledgments, but it feels pretty good to be part of it. Something interesting, and the latest one I'm part of is I'm asked to do a jazz song for a video game that's set in the future with indigenous people in it, and there's going to be a jazz song recurring in the background in Cree. I don't know how it's just amazing. It's amazing being part of language conferences, being part of community festivals, language festivals. It's just for me, it's always been fun. I think that if somebody was to truly understand the Cree way of just being fluent, you'll start to really see things a lot differently in a lot of ways. If you take a look at pen, pencil, marker, felt pen, highlighter, those are all writing tools, right? In the English language, those are all different things. The Cree people didn't have such varied terms with menial things that didn't really mean much. Those are all Masaneganachigos. And all that means is little writing stick. Masaneganachigos. It wasn't important to translate or to decipher all these different things that did one job. What was important is family roles. You ever try figuring out how you related to that cousin in the next reserve and 1,000 miles away, and all of a sudden they're your granddaughter, or that's your uncle, or that's your sister or your brother, and you didn't grow up with them? Well, they see, Cree people, indigenous people were geneticists. I'm not saying that in a romantic way. They truly were geneticists. Genealogy, following all that, the complications of who you can marry and who you can't marry, and also the human being, how the word for child is awasis, and how similar it is to something that's bright. Wasu, he or she is bright. Awasis. You can't help but see how the Cree word for awasis actually is the one that's shining. And you start taking a look at that shining one, that kid that has so much energy coming off of them. And the word for somebody that's mad is kisuaso. Kisuaso is, if you break down that word kisuaso, it actually means that the one with fierce light. It's like fierce light. Kisuaso. And so I think that we miss out on a lot if we don't ask questions, and if we don't start, even if it takes the rest of your life to just ask questions about various things. Ask, and you never know what golden gems you're going to come across, and it's just going to make you just kind of sit back and think, wow, do you imagine what people thought back then and still today?